First, let's see an introduction of Dockerfile. Dockerfile is a script that contains series of commands and instructions to create Docker image. So, what we can understand out of this is Dockerfile is a really powerful tool for automating the creation of Docker images, ensuring consistency across different environments. What a Docker file will contain? It will contain series of instructions on how to build a Docker image. We will define the environment and the configuration of our application in the Docker file. Basically, Dockerfile is a text file that contains instructions on how to build a Docker image. It automates the process of creating Docker image, and the main purpose here is to define the environment configuration for our application. Now let's see basic structure of a Docker file. So the key instructions of a Docker file are from where we will specify the base image. This base image is nothing but which environment or Linux, Python, Windows, or which base environment that we want our application to run. We will specify as base image in the first command from. Next is copy. So as the name says, copy, what it does, it copies the file from host to the container. Next command is the run. So here we will include what are all the things that we want to execute. As the name says, run allows us to execute the commands in the container. Next command is CMD. CMD abbreviation is command only. So here we will specify the command to run when the container starts. We can mention here which script or Python file in our application is we want to run. So that command we can mention here. So in parallel, if you see for the respective key instructions, the code to the right hand side. So first line, if you see from Python 3.8 Slim. So this is the base image that specifies that includes Python 3.8 environment. Next is /app. So what it does is it copies the working directory. It copies the files, application files from the host into the container. Next is the work dir. So this is nothing but working directory, and we have mentioned the working directory here as /app. So /app will be our working directory. Next is run pip install -r requirements.txt. So we will use this pip install if we want to install all the packages in a requirements file. We will use this pip install command. So here we want to execute that. That means like we want to install the libraries in our container. So we will use run command to execute this pip install. Next is the command. What it means is here if we have parameters Python and app.py. So here we are specifying the command to run the application using CMD instruction. As a recap, let's just see the steps to create a Docker file again. First step is to choose the base image. Base image is the starting point of our Docker image. So we will mention the operating system and or any environment that we want here as base image. So first we will choose the base image. Next, we will set up the working directory. So first we will define a directory in the container where we want our commands to be executed, and we will set it up as working directory. Next is copy files. So the necessary files for our application to run from our local machine to Docker image, we can copy using this copy command. Next step is installing dependencies. This is the run command step. So here, any software packages that we want to install, any libraries that our application needs, we can do in this step. Next is expose port. So if we are running a API based application, we want to create a URL, an endpoint the user wants to hit. In that place, we want to expose a port. So to do that, we can specify the network port in the container using export port command. Next is we will define the command, like we will set the command that will be executed when the container start. So when we are starting the container, this command, as we have seen in the previous slide as example, python app.py. So as and when the container starts, which file we want the container to run, so that we will mention in the command. Next, we will see a in detail Dockerfile example, a simple hello world example for Dockerfile, how we can build the Docker image and how we can run the Docker container. So first and foremost, the initial step is project directory creation. We create a directory for our project. We can use the Linux commands mkdir, which is make directory, and then my Python app. So this will be our application name. Next, cd my Python app. So this is to change directory to my Python app. So these commands we can execute in Anaconda prompt or in our terminal with Python setup. Next is to create our application files. So we will just create a simple Python script. Example, we can name it like app.py. Inside the app.py, we will keep the Python command print hello world. Next, we will create the Docker file. So, when we are creating the Docker file, we have to make sure we are naming it Docker file, because we have certain commands after that to run, build, and run the Docker, right? So, at that by default, it will pick with using this Docker file name from the project directory. So first is we use the official Python runtime as parent image. So here we are considering 3.9 Python environment as base image. So we will start with from command. So from will have the Python 3.9 as base image. We will have a detailed explanation of this in the next slide. First, we will see the contents that needs to be included inside the Docker file, and all these code related you can find in my Git repo, or I have attached in the below description note section. So next step is the working directory, setting up the working directory in the container. So we are setting up the working directory. Next, we are copying the files from local into the host using copy command. So you might wonder, we are just keeping couple of dots. Actually, what it means is we are considering the current environment, current directory in the local machine and the current directory in the host machine. So that's what these two dots indicate. Next, what we will do is we will install the needed packages. We will include all the packages on the requirements.txt file. That requirements.txt file, we will create it and keep it in our MyPython app folder. Next, we will use the run command to install all the requirements. Next, what we will do is, so depending on the API that you want to create, like if you want to create a Streamlit app, if you want to create a Flask based app like a REST API, or it's like a fast API. So depending on that, the port varies. But for now, let's consider we are using 5000. So this we will expose so that it will be made available to the container. Next, we will set an environment name as world. This is just a mere example. This is just an example. In a real world, for what we will use environment is to set up the environment to indicate like whether it is development, testing, or production. Next, finally, which script as and when the container starts, it should run, we will indicate in the command. And now we have seen the Docker file. Now we will see explanation of each of the commands in the Docker file. So as explained, from is used to specify the base image to be used in the Docker image. Next is the working directory. We will set the working directory for the container, and all the subsequent commands that we have in our Docker file will be executed in this working directory. Next is copy. Copies the files from local machine to Docker image. So like it copies all the files in the current directory to the working directory. Next is run. So here it executes the commands in the container. For example, it will install the dependencies that we have included in the requirements.txt file in the above case. Next is expose. Here, it informs the Docker the container will listen to specified network port at runtime. So here, what we are exposing port number 5000. Next is environment. This is the env. This sets the environment variable. Like here, it sets name variable to world. Next is cmd. This is nothing but we will specify a command to run where the container starts. Here, it runs Python script app.py. Next, let's see building and running the Docker image. First, building the Docker image. So we can build the Docker image using the command docker build -t my app and then space dot. So what this means is docker build is the command to build the Docker image, and -t is to tag the name that we that follows the -t to the image. So it tags the image with the name my app. Next, the dot specifies current directory. So the image that we are going to build will be built in the current directory. Next is the next. Let's see how to run the Docker container. So similar to Docker build, we have a command docker run -p 5000 colon 5000 space my app. So here docker run is the command used to run the Docker container. Next, -p and the 5000 colon 5000, what it means is it maps the port 5000 of the container to the port 5000 on the host. So this -p indicates port. Next, we have our my app. So this indicates like earlier we have tagged our image as my app, right? So which image to run? We will use the name of the image in the docker run command. We will specify the image to run here. So this is it with building and running the Docker image. Next, let's see Docker layers. So we have seen many commands that is used inside a Docker file. So what it does to the Docker image, it basically, when we are doing Docker build, it basically creates layers for each and every command that we are going to execute in our Docker file. So, for example, in the screen, you can see Dockerfile will have these commands, and how many layers will be created is as many number of instructions that we have mentioned in the Docker file. Right from the base image will create a layer. Next, the working directory will create a layer. Copy will create a layer. Each and every run will create a layer. That's why instead of indicating run pip install the package that we want, we use requirements.txt to reduce the layers. Next, entry point. This can be a command, entry point, or anything we want based on the application that we are going to run. So for efficient purposes, like for hosting the for running the Docker container, this Docker layers we have to ensure it is minimum. It is not overwhelming for the container. So if you see how the Docker layers is, so it will from the bottom, if you see, it will start with the base image, then it will have the layer one. So it can be the copy instruction or working directory. So whichever instruction we have, so it will update, it will create a layer on top of the base image. So from bottom to top is the update frequency, and it will update one after the other. So if we have too many layers, just imagine it will be like really overwhelming. That's why we have to keep it minimum. We will see how we can do it. Next, so that is it with the Docker container, and how we can create Docker file, and how we can run the Docker image as a container.